Hello. So, before we begin today's quest, let me introduce myself. I'm Carmine Biancamano, class advisor and Navigate 360 operations coordinator with Gettysburg College. And if you couldn't tell by my name, I'm a first-generation American with an Italian dad and a Puerto Rican mom. My mother was one of 10, and my dad was one of 6. And family was really important to them, and in turn, to us. Growing up, connection meant everything. And one of the ways we connected might surprise you. It wasn't family dinners, hiking, or playing Monopoly. It was video games. I know gaming doesn't always scream wholesome family bonding, but sitting side by side with my siblings, taking turns on the controller, trash talking and cheering each other on, those are some of our best memories. We laughed, we argued, we celebrated tiny wins that felt like epic victories. And somehow in all that competition, it clicked. This wasn't just fun, this was us together. Sometimes the most genuine connections happen when we're not even trying to connect. That's what gaming gave us, a way to be together without forcing it. And our favorite, Super Smash Brothers, no contest. Love to hear the cheers. If you never played it, first of all, please do immediately as soon as you get home. And second, to paint the picture for you, Smash is a chaotic, hilarious fighting game where characters like Mario, Link, Pikachu, and Donkey Kong try to launch each other off the stage. There are no health bars, just rising damage percentages that send you flying if you're not careful. And that beat-up N64 in our living room became a launch pad. Not off the stage, mind you, but for joy, for connection, and for being ourselves. And so years later, I found myself working in higher ed, a student-facing job in res life. It was exciting at first, until it wasn't. I mean, the late nights, the emotional burnout, COVID, all of it stacked up until I was sitting in my supervisor's office, drained and barely holding it together, trying to explain why I wasn't okay, but not finding the right words. If I had a health bar over my head, it would be flashing red. I was tapped out. Oh, and for those of you non-gamers out there, when the health bar is red, it's not good. So a few months later, in the middle of COVID, no less, I got laid off. Game over, right? Not quite. As every true gamer knows, the end is never really the end. And gaming kept me going. And that's why today, I want to talk about how hobbies, like gaming, aren't escapes from real life, they're bridges back to it. They're how we recharge, reconnect, and remember who we are outside of job titles. Because joy, that's not a side quest. It's what keeps us in the game. And maybe you hate gaming. Maybe you prefer running until you drop, doing karaoke with friends, or dancing like nobody's watching. It doesn't matter. Whatever your thing is, it's not a distraction. It's what gets you through. It's what keeps you authentically connected to your students. Okay, so let's get back to the quest. Are you ready to get started? Hell yeah. Get set, on your mark, get set, go. So right back to the beginning. I grew up on Long Island, youngest of 4. I was player 4 by default. And probably by accident. In a working class immigrant household, gaming wasn't always a priority. But to me, it was pure magic. Games became the one place I didn't have to explain myself. especially the RPGs or role-playing games. Final Fantasy, Fire Emblems, these games that ask the big questions about justice, free will, and fate. They gave me this internal language for things I hadn't figured out how to say out loud. I know I already mentioned Super Smash Bros., but what I didn't share was how personal it was to us. My brother, Mario, and I swear I'm not making this up, that's him, that's Mario. He always chose to play as a character, Mario. I still wonder why my parents never named me Luigi, though. But since they didn't, I just played Captain Falcon. Somebody had to bring the style after all, and our uncle would be Yoshi. We didn't need in-depth heart-to-hearts. We had trash talk and team-ups, laughing, competing, connecting. That was our language. Those nights weren't just bonding, they were safety. Looking back on those gaming sessions were some of the safest, happiest moments of my life. And I didn't know it at the time, but those hours with the control in my hand, they were shaping me, giving me a sense of self, of control, of joy. And one day that joy really ended up saving me. So now let's jump again into 2020, our favorite year. I was burned out and laid off. The combination of all this wrecked me. I moved back home to Long Island, jobless, drained, questioning everything. I didn't know if I'd ever work in higher ed again. I wasn't sure if I even wanted to. But I still had games, and those games gave me a mission. They gave me a purpose. I pick a character, I make a plan, and I move forward. In a time where everything felt unstable, games were steady. They gave me a sense of safety when nothing else did, and as the world started to reopen, I began attending competitive Smash Brothers tournaments. And these tournaments were on college campus, and I went not because I expected to win. I wasn't chasing trophies. I was chasing something else. Fun, community, healing. And in those rooms, tournaments buzzing with trash talk and cheap pizza, I started to feel myself again. I began to feel the joy again. That was the beginning of my second life. Because as I kept showing up at different college campuses to compete in tournaments, something unexpected happened. Every room was a little different. Folding chairs, tangled cords, consoles duct taped to TVs. But the vibe was always the same. Loud, scrappy, electric. And an endless parade of red Solo cups. But it was real, and it was exactly what I needed. Being surrounded by college students again, it just felt right. We were talking strategy, building community. All these young students were so lively, and I didn't feel out of place. I felt at home. And then we had one conversation about Dungeons and Dragons. It wasn't a big moment, just a casual conversation with someone talking about their character build. But something about it hit different. It reignited my passion for RPGs, made me miss the storytelling, the imagination, and the connection with others. It made me miss the bonding with strangers over something that brought us so much joy. It blasted open a feeling that could no longer be locked in a safe drawer in my mind. And I remember thinking, this is what I missed about higher ed. It wasn't the systems, it wasn't the meetings, it was the students, the connections. And that moment was my reset. It pulled me back into the game of academia, and not in a reluctant return, but an intentional one. And so I realized, maybe I'm not done with this field after all. So I took a chance, I applied for a job, and I got hired as a class advisor and Navigate 360 administrator at Gettysburg College. And just like that, I'm back in the game. Now that I'm back in higher ed, I show up differently. I don't hide my love of games, I lead with it. My office has Pokemon art, Smash memorabilia, a Pikachu plush on the shelf, and the students notice. They laugh, they relax, and they open up. Now I meet students where they are, and sometimes that means speaking their language. You're throwing the game this semester? What's your build for finals? Are you playing on expert level on purpose? Simple phrases, but they land. Because they are real, gaming became a bridge, especially for students who don't feel like they fit the mold, who might be anxious, lonely, burned out, like I once was. I've learned that showing up as my most authentic self makes it easier for students to do the same. And games taught me that. They also taught me resilience. You lose, you learn, you queue up again. I've been bodied and smashed more times than I can count, but I always queue up again. And that's where the growth happens. They taught me self-direction. You don't level up unless you put in the time. There are no portals, no shortcuts, just grind and grow. Like real life, minus the cool soundtrack. They taught me empathy. Online games drop you into teams with people you'd never meet otherwise. You listen, you learn to lead, and you learn to collaborate with people who are nothing like you. And they taught me connection. Ask someone what they play, and you learn who they are. These weren't just gaming lessons, they were life lessons. And they've made me a better advisor. Because when a student walks into my office feeling like they've already lost, I know what it means to start at zero, to build back up, to keep playing anyway. So as we come to the end of today's quest, here's what I want to leave you with. Not just as an advisor, but as someone who's been burnt out, laid off, and still found his way back. Joy isn't a detour. It's fuel. It's what keeps us going when the job feels too heavy, and it's what helps us recover when our health bar is on red. And it's what reminds us why we got into this work in the first place. Your hobbies, such as gaming, cosplaying, painting, hiking, art, travel, sports, marathons, reading, crochet, music, whatever lights you up, that's not a distraction. That's your reset button. It's the thing that tells your brain, you're not just here to perform, you're here to feel. They keep you in the game, they give you the energy, the perspective, the language to connect. Especially with students who may be struggling to find their own joy. For me, gaming was where I could not just be a person again, where I could be just a person again, not the advisor and not the fixer, just me. And that space helped me return with a clearer head, a fuller heart, and a deeper connection to my students. Because when I started to show up more fully, something shifted. They did too. So, I challenge you to find what excites you outside of your professional identity. Find your reset button, don't skip the side quest. They just might lead you back to yourself. And they may even level you up in the process. So thank you. Thank you.